The third brand that has entered into a partnership with Brainchild is the company Reedin. And now we have the test of the new Hypermodel for you. The front tube is supported by a 6-point bridle without pulleys. The control lines are directly connected to the tips, and there are 3 different options to adjust the bar pressure and turning speed to your personal preference. The inflation and deflation is done through a large inlet and outlet valve, which some of you might remember from liquid force. The one-pump system is designed to be straight and short, and for even faster deflation, there's an additional release valve. Of course, we also find this ProWell technology here again. For the flying fabric, we have a novel material here, which is actually a double ripstop material. The special feature is that a less stretchable material is used in the middle section, while a slightly softer fabric is used in the tip areas. This 3-strut kite has line deflectors at the end of the front tube, while the 3 middle cross struts do not have line deflectors. The trailing edge is simply doubled, and at both tip ends there are 2 additional battens to prevent the fabric from fluttering and causing wear. The cross tubes are attached to the flying fabric with a single seam and are doubled and glued from the inside. All stressed areas are reinforced with fabric doublings. What you immediately notice with the Reedin Hypermodel is its truly sensational lightweight. The kite is already flowing so evenly and well at 7 to 8 knots that it's really no problem at all to get it flying. We achieved a similarly great result with the twin tip. 80 kilo rider on 1.4 meters board stays at 12-13 knots. No sinus movement for start or speed, without any problems maintaining height at 12 to 13 knots. You don't need any sinus movement to get going early or to increase your speed. Here, the performance potential is very comparable to a Harlem Thrive of the same size, or a Duotone Evo Dilep. ProWell technology from Brainchild allows thin tubes with stiffness, benefiting upwind course with smooth flow, no corrections needed. The kite goes very close to the edge of the wind window and has a completely homogeneous flow and does not require any corrections. So, going upwind is really easy here. The bar feeling is characterized by absolute directness, speed, and agility. The 6-point harness without pulleys and a direct connection of the front line to the adjuster provide a really nice direct bar feeling. The holding forces are in the medium to light range. The steering forces are typically in the light range. What's really nice is that no matter where you simply hold the bar on the D power, the responsiveness of the Hypermodel remains really strong for a long time. And of course, this also means that you can maintain control over the kite's position in the wind window for a long time. The propulsion that can indeed be gained from the Reedin Hypermodel is truly a combination of a consistent pull and overall an above-average high flight speed. This mix is definitely very modern, but you need 3, 4 or 5 strokes and a bit of riding skill to get the maximum performance out of the kite. It's crucial to set the board edge optimally. This ensures maximum line tension and kite performance. Next, let's take a look at the flight characteristics. The Hypermodel ensures smooth turning. Depending on steering, it easily controls tight and wide arcs. And depending on the steering angle, very tight radii as well as naturally wide radii can be easily controlled. And it all works in various wind conditions and flight speeds. In normal wind conditions, with a medium flight speed up to a very high flight speed in the upper wind range. This applies to both kite sizes we tested. We had 9 and 12 square meters available for testing. The flight stability in lower wind conditions is, as we mentioned at the beginning, truly exceptional. Due to its lightweight and perfect profile, we have a kite here, which is designed for optimal performance. that can really be used in the absolute lowest wind conditions and can also be relaunched easily. One thing we noticed at the bar is that the swimmers impact the steering impulse. Especially when there's not much wind, it does have some influence on the steering. The flight stability in strong winds is also very good. Here, we have a stiffness in the entire frame that keeps the canopy really very stable all the time. Its performance is almost as high as that of a Lula in terms of speed and efficiency. The chicken loop or safety system releases at Reedin under 6 kilos with a load of 120 kilograms. Since we have a modern click-in system here, reassembly is really very easy. For the relaunch of the 9 square meter kite, we need approximately about 6 knots in order to successfully launch the kite effectively. To simply pull and gently hold a steering line carefully to get the kite back in the air. It also launches effortlessly and easily when you hold both steering lines, and it starts backward. But essentially, in essence, the Reedin Hypermodel is all about jumping. And that's really very interesting from our side as well, which is quite a fascinating aspect to consider, because 3 different companies are collaborating with Brainchild, and of course their own designers are involved too in this collaboration process. And it is really, absolutely, incredibly, very, very exciting to see how the whole topic is being approached and what the fascinating results are. And here you can really notice the distinct touch of Ralph Grösel. Even though the setup is quite new, there's no ypsilon, a deep ypsilon, the front lines go directly to the adjuster. The 6-point bridle supports a front tube with a C shape. The canopy is rounded and it's not more spread out in the middle. You can see this in the images. So the overall concept is, in its essence, quite clearly different from a label like Harlem or even F1. The thinner front tube and a not too deep profile ensure that we have no lateral force and aerodynamic efficiency before jumping. The kite can be launched with great ease, quite effortlessly, without any extra effort. As mentioned earlier, it is important to note that we definitely need the most optimal edge grip for maximum performance to really jump high in strong winds. If we now look at the lower to mid wind range, the lift isn't extreme. Instead, it corresponds to a good 3-strut freeride high lifter with a continuous, powerful, and even pull upwards, but without that real strong punch. And when the riding technique is optimally aligned with the kite, we achieve absolute top performance. The Hypermodel stands out for its crisp, agile steering, which can certainly be compared to the high level of performance and quality of a Neo D-Lab, a Thrive, or even an F1 Trigger, all of which are renowned for their exceptional capabilities and cutting-edge technology. The special thing about the Hypermodel is essentially this very crisp, agile steering, and also the precision, consistency, reliability, and dependability that we get from it. Even though it's also equipped with light bar forces, it's not as intense as with a Thrive. The fun here lies in a playful and precise moment that can be accessed across the entire wind range. And when it comes to kite loops, I have to say, this is marketed as the benchmark for kite loops. Sure, we've tested 9 and 12 square meters, you would need to examine at least approximately 6 square meters at 35-40 knots to be able to do doubles and similar tricks. But you can definitely really tell with the noticeably larger sizes that it turns super fast and tight. You can easily get back up again. So it just goes smoothly through the loop. It's a bit of a different feeling than with the Thrive, but not any worse. Let's look at the hang time. It's good to very good in the normal wind range. Most likely almost 90% of all users will use this kite. Only when everything is absolutely and completely perfect can it truly, really be pushed to the next level. But those are really upper levels of riding skills and truly endless training and consistent, that you really have to get all the little details right, like edge control, takeoff, when to pull up, how to pull up, and at what angle to pull the kite up. Everything really has to come together perfectly for those absolutely spectacular flight phases to happen. With the previous various high-performance Bigair freeride kites, you usually had to decide, okay, do you want more inactive hang time or active hang time? You can fly the kite quickly back and forth in the air, which allows you to gain even more hang time. With the Reedin Hypermodel, it's absolutely a combination. That's certainly due to this mix of consistent pull and undoubtedly elevated flight speed. You can definitely get both from the kite, and depending on your skill level, you'll absolutely always be satisfied here. Because in the normal range, we have a completely reliable canopy that already delivers very good performance, even in the inactive range, so you don't have to fly it actively at all, absolutely. But when you move it in an active manner, the performance potential really shows spectacular peaks in a very significant and noticeable way. When it comes to the necessary riding skills, as mentioned, the range is huge. There are no limitations even for the absolute beginner, thanks to a perfect water start capability and precise, always responsive steering. In the end, the professional will only be able to let their taste decide whether he wants to have the flight pattern of a more stretched three-strut high-performance aircraft such as an Evo D-Lab or a Thrive, which has a similar aspect ratio but a stronger front curvature in the middle section and a slightly different flight pattern than the Reedin Hypermodel, which, with its round, more C-like shape and the directly connected front lines to the adjuster, offers one of the most responsive bar feelings among these different kites. In terms of price, we're definitely not in the bargain range here. 12 square meters cost 24.89 euros. This is much cheaper than D-Lab, but also a lot of money, but also a lot of fun.